Before we start the session, I would want to raise your agenda. The basic agenda for we were on the ideation level that why would you want a fireside chat was basically wanting to have a productive session wherein we can hear about perspectives that different stakeholders in the startup ecosystem have. We wanted to have someone from academia, we have Startup20, then we have startup ecosystem representative, and the other government officials. The session agenda goes in, feel free to ask questions from the panelists. Would request to put the questions open-ended so that if any of the panelists would want to add their perspectives to the questions, it would be more enlightenment at the other end. Starting the session with a very interesting question that we had, and this is, I think, the question that all of us here would have in mind, that, and this is for all the panel members here, that how do you see the entire role of the northeast region of our country in shaping the sustainability in startups, and majorly in the field of power generation, shipping, and empowering the efficient supply chain through the road transport? Because as we know, it's a hilly region, and road transportation is one of the major pro and cons factor. So what are your views on it? So thank you.
Can I start with you? I would just, like the other panelists, they run their startups, and of course, Chintanji is the chair of Startup20. We are here from DPI. I think we are part of the startup ecosystem, the policy and the catalyst for promoting startups. But I would just like to mention that one area which you did not specify is organic farming. So farm to folk, and how organic farming. In fact, just now at the press conference there was a question where our honorable CIM, who was here a month back, had mentioned that organic farming exports are looking at a target of $1 million within the next 7-8 years. So all these are very important. Startups play a very critical role. And reiterating the point I mentioned morning, that the way during COVID, when supply chains were disrupted, food was, not easily available, but things worked out thanks to proper guideline policy, thanks to interventions by all the officials all across the country. People were, all of us were coming to office every day, people were working actively. And startups played a very key role in, especially, there have been so many initiatives in agriculture, food, how they could talk directly source from the vegetable vendors to the farmers, and how so many there have been FPOs. And these are now, we have to look towards branding them, marketing them, put them on the global stage, see how the quality improves, and especially this huge opportunity in Sikkim of organic farming. I think it is unparalleled. And besides other areas where maybe other people would like to mention, but this is a critical area which I think needs a lot of focus. And we need to put up policies. Even during the B20 meeting, the Honorable Chief Minister has spoken about need for good policies in organic farming, food processing, eco-friendly technologies in agriculture, better technologies for the farmers to disseminate amongst farmers. So again, a few more key areas which require lot of attention. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, can I add one more similar lines as what Rupa just said? So B20 is a meeting, Sikkim meeting, also had tourism, hospitality, pharmaceuticals. So these two are again, in terms of asking for various sectors that you would list as consumption, transportation, generation, etc. I just wanted to add some more to it. I also wanted to rationalize this number, this $1 billion. Generally, in our day-to-day life, $1 billion is difficult to wrestle with that number. right? So I just want to say that that is 8,000 crore rupees. So now the question is that too much? Is that too little? How do we understand this number, right? And so just look at, so India has, this morning, you gave us the exact number, 93,000 some startups, right? Now, if you look at those, within those, about 3,000 of those that are in other incubation centers. We have numbers for, if you look at just those numbers, these startups have their valuation at 8,700 crores. That is their, 6,700 crores nowadays. 6,700 crores is the only those 3,000 we're talking about. So, and we are 93,000. And so I think this 8,000 crores in one state, if we get it right, is achievable. That's, I just wanted to put it out.
Thank you, sir.
So, the Northeast, in terms of sustaining startups, would essentially in the domains that were articulated by our moderator and, of course, Ms. Rupa and Dr. Chintanji. So, central to the theme would be perhaps the streamlined supply chain management with hinterland connectivity up to the last mile. And clearly, the communication network is critical to its success. But central to all the sectors that were elucidated a little while back is a theme of digital transformation which could apply cross-sectionally to all these sectors, wherein it could be leveraged optimally for the future upscaling of each of these. The communication network is a major issue, and of course the focus of understanding the Northeast ecosystem and giving it the impetus as also the launchpad to fulfill its true aspirations and its potential. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who would want to add their point?
Hi, I'm a bit skeptical in terms of talking only about digital innovations as the major thing that has to happen in India, because the rurality that they're talking about has got its own attraction. And we talk about a new initiative, something like rural incubation centers. So all Northeast that I see, they actually resonate with sustainability. So when the world want to understand and reach to sustainability, they look at Northeast in India at least, as one venture where they can come and rest of it. So a lot of tourism initiatives in the rural part of the same Northeast will be an amazing thing. And my experience in some parts of Assam, I have seen entrepreneurs who are hardly much educated, but they conduct the tourism in such a way they make at least ₹1 lakh a month, giving employment for 10 more people in that same vicinity. And what they sell is not like any digitalization or any movie, but they actually try to sell how they actually live. Now, this itself is a wonderful opportunity for all the northeastern states. Now, coming to the second thing, obviously the organic products that Sikkim is having, that you are blessed with. And I have already seen there's a small gap. I don't see a small, but it's a large gap again. Because it was saying as some 9 startups in Sikkim is something like, a shock for me. How come Sikkim is only having these many startups? Why not more? Yes, if there is a possibility, we want to hand over the youth of Sikkim and try to create more and more digital transformation startups coming up to give the last mile reach for these organic products. So tourism and organic products are one of the important scope areas that we see for all the northeastern states addressing sustainability.
Thank you.
If I could just, maybe I got the numbers. There are more than 80 startups which is about, so there are plenty which are incubating under the aegis of the M&M Career Incubation Mission and Startup20. Yes, the impetus is of course under the banner of BPIIT.
Thank you, sir. I would want to open the floor for any questions. Yes, sir, please go.
I hope my voice is audible. Just to add to all what the panel has mentioned right now, being in the e-commerce industry for the last 20 years and running the supply chain, we have seen a tremendous improvement in Northeast in terms of the digital transformation, in terms of the delivery what is happening. So with PM Shaktiman coming and National Logistics Policy getting enabled in India and India, we foresee that the contribution from the Northeast will be tremendous. Supply chain is a crucial part for the transformation in terms of the transportation and in terms of the e-commerce space. We see B2C brands coming from the east part of Sikkim and Nagaland and Mizoram and Meghalaya in the health organic sector, which will be a definite huge beneficiary for the people across India, because such products which are available here typically doesn't get delivered to the south of India or even the west of India. So we see that these are very exciting moments for the Bharat innovation which is currently happening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are opening the floor for questions. Mike, please.
Thank you. I have a question for the startup here, right? So, sticking to the women empowerment scheme, what kinds of benefit you see for women entrepreneurs starting here? Is there a support system already? What has been your own experience? Is there some learnings that we can have from that? What kind of sectors or domain? What's been your take?
So we have a lot of women entrepreneurs in the state of Sikkim, and industries that they are in are quite, I can say they are in agro, they are in technology, as well as health sector, tourism, textile, manufacturing, FMCG, food industry. So it's quite a lot because I would like to say that I would like to credit the inclusivity and women-centric approach of our government under the leadership of the Chief Minister. Because of his vision and the society as a whole, we have been able to come up with policies and schemes which are very centered towards women entrepreneurs. And because of that, the results have been impressive. We have about, I think, half of the numbers are women entrepreneurs in Sikkim. And they are trying to get into finance, they are trying to get into deep tech, but for that I think more large infrastructure is needed. But overall the stats have been positive, and they are creating jobs and employment for the state.
And what's your startup proposal?
So mine is a recent startup. I've started in jewelry business that's with gold, diamonds and gemstones. So mine is mostly manufacturing and retail in gemstones and gold. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Any more questions?
Now that Hardik has put you in the spot, I continue to put you in the spot. We have some young people here, they were talking to me, a lot of girls here. Just run through your challenges if you don't prepare. I think we had the young crowd here who are, I spoke to some of them, they are interested, they have some ideas, but they are just thinking about how to go about it. The first thing you guys need to do is go and visit Adult Incubation Center at Sikkim Manipal. That will help you also. But just guide
Thank you,
them.
sir. Thank you, sir, for the question. So, yes, handholding is very important because we are, let's say, a first generation entrepreneurs or the second generation entrepreneurs. Our parents and our fathers, they have all been in government employees. So the mindset is very different. So in order for us to transition to entrepreneurship and delve into uncharted territories as a woman entrepreneur in Sikkim, we need a lot of handholding and mentorship. So for that, talent, creation of talent pool is important. Resources and availability of resources as well as infrastructures and institutions like AICS, UTBI and other incubators are very imperative for the growth. And also, I'm sure women from Sikkim are very courageous. We also have this, this character trait, which was also mentioned by the Honorable Chief Minister today, that is soft authority, soft power. So because of that, it's a soft skill, and because of that, we are able to harness, entrepreneurship that is malleable and that is aligned with our values as a Sikkimese woman. So I would like to encourage all the young entrepreneurs to be in touch with us, especially institutions, and even, yes, I'm willing to help.
Some of these youngsters in the cycle from idea to venture. How do we go about it? So that some of them do get motivated to do what we do.
So idea is important, but execution is equally important, and iteration in between. So an idea can only stay as an idea if there is no planning. So planning is important, and iterating an idea, you start with the prototype. If you have an idea, you start with the prototype. That's the whole structure of being a startup. You start with an idea and then you put it out in the market, you test in the market, your customers will validate and point out what is good and what's not, and then you come back and then iterate again. So it's a long process. It's not entrepreneurship. I feel is the most courageous act for anybody, be it for males or females. So for that, I think commentary of commentary of entrepreneurs is important. Where you put out an idea and then you iterate and then come back and make changes in your product. And that's the only way to go forward, that you take the first step, you take the first splash.
Thank you.
Just a little minute, just at the cost of some modesty for the young, impressionable youth over here, and sparkling vision in their eyes and their countenance. The Incubation Center of the Sikkim Manipal University, Dr. Chintan's permission, I would like to say that we have 78 startups, created 342 plus jobs, generated 26 crores in the span of less than 4 odd years, and with a success rate which is upwards of 90%. Which is very significant, and we can actually reach out to institutions both in the school and in the higher education domain to create the sort of foundational avenues which create towards the ecosystem in entrepreneurship.
Yes, sir, please. Thank you.
So one, just wanted to add to this conversation. The students I see here are all of you in high school? Some are colleges also. Okay. This is a set of questions that got posed. Initially, there was a question about transportation, logistics, last mile. Now the question of going from idea to an enterprise. Then there was this school angle and college angle that came. One very interesting example came to mind. So some years ago, I worked in the mountains in Garhwal and Kumar. And one of the things I learned was that particularly for citrus fruits or tomatoes, eggs, if you are a household producing it a little bit down, I mean people here know this, but people in the rest of the world probably appreciate this. Down, say 8 kilometers from the main road, if you were to bring a sack of tomatoes up by walk, some of those tomatoes as they got onto the sack are going to be spoiled because of the pressure. Now what do you do with that? With something like that? Also the roads, you are transporting it in trucks and so on. So recently I was in Puducherry in south of India, and I met this two rural students from a school there. And they were experimenting with something very simple but very elegant. There was a box. And in the box there were hooks on, so imagine a cube with on the walls there are these different hooks. And from the hooks you can tie a string, you can tie strings together so that the object in the center is suspended. And then you do this experiment of throwing that box from a height and you see if the object go for nip, right? So first you get into something like this, it's really fun, you do trial and error, you try fragile objects, you try little sturdier objects, you try different sizes of boxes, all of that. But after a while, once something works, then I think the question becomes, why this particular set of type of strings work in protecting the object? And that's when you, if you're in college, etc., you begin to get into mathematics. You can model this situation, right? As to if I had put this hook here instead of here, would it protect the thing more or less or whatever? And it really gets into just a fascinating set of questions and design options and all of that. Now bring that back to transporting things in places in terrains like this. And I think you have a whole continuum of experimenting, learning, productizing, and solving such a lovely set of solutions come up for local problems.
Thank you so much. It brought us back to the, if we have ever really like a session and it was a visualization or something like that. I had actually one question which sort of originated while we were having a discussion that there are certain models which the state is following to empower entrepreneurship and innovation in the state, and which are these 2-3 models which you would suggest that can be also used at the central level for entrepreneurship and innovation, because again it has been a difficult journey for any state to inculcate the habit of entrepreneurship and innovation, because in the early ages we had that, but then again as we evolved there was a gap in between, but now again we are stepping up and trying to have that or bring it in our culture. So, what would be 2-3 models that you would suggest that can be also implemented via the center, which are currently at the state level?
This is a question for anybody in particular. Right? My mind goes to people who work in the rural entrepreneurship, because that's something that everybody's trying to learn.
I'll just elaborate one model which we were actually working out. This all started in COVID. We were having incubating center in Hyderabad to talk about some kind of technology and digitalization and stuff. And COVID has pushed us back to the days. This time, to have some kind of peace of mind, because it's all like lonely world that we're living in those days. So we have been to some farms, we settled ourselves there. And after some time, we see a lot of like young And from CC started coming back there because COVID was pushing them back to home. Now these talents were charged with ideas. They are charged not with to say like innovation in the first place, but they are like business ideas. And maybe I see that has to be tapped in. Sometimes you can't only run after innovation. Sometimes you need to see if the person wanted to prove his identity and establish his identity by becoming an entrepreneur, you should actually handhold them. And those people used to approach us as knowledge, for knowledge seeking. So we were mentoring them. So sometimes it might look so like simple, but we were doing on poultry, we were doing on dairy technology, we were doing something little extra edge and said, okay, why not you do what you call the pisciculture, like a fishery in RAS model where within small pond you can create tons of fish. Then all these things and models, they became successful. And earlier model was they were getting the finances arranged maybe 50,000, 1,000, 1 lakh rupee, and after that they try it. Once they fail, they never used to come back it again. And we find if you are able to handhold these people, they create entrepreneurship. So we need something like rural incubation center for entrepreneurship. Then we started this RISE, Rural Incubation Center for Entrepreneurship. And this is one model which we see as a possibility for India now. Because people are aware with the digitalization and the mobiles they have got, they know what is innovation, they see a lot of videos on YouTube, but someone is needed in the rural grassroots level where they experiment with these ideas and come up with some kind of products or service delivery. So a creation of ecosystem in the rural area is what I perceive as one model. Thank you.
So, may I just barge in here? So, we are part of a public-private partnership, and to fulfill my own responsibility, I would like to say that Sikkim is a very user-friendly destination for startups. The government is an enabling entity and a force multiplier in giving startups the impetus, the momentum, and the handholding. So there is this skilled youth startup mission which has been created as also a Kaushal Yuva Startup Yojana, which the government of Sikkim under the inspirational leadership of our Chief Minister and consonance with the visionary stewardship of our Honorable Prime Minister. 80% of rebate is given on patents, as also incentivization is undertaken, scholarships are there, and some insulation and resilience is also created for them to be sort of have the grit and the persistence to take through the startup journey, which is never very easy. So I think that is just a few of these which could perhaps be applicable in the Northeast and maybe elsewhere.
Thank you, sir. Any other perspectives from the panel members? Okay. Moving on to the next. Any questions from the audience? Sure. Can we have the mic, please?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Divya Prasad from Odisha, Bhubaneswar, and belonging to one of the early incubation centers there in Bhubaneswar. My question would something to look beyond Northeast also, and to see that how a bridging could be made between the rest of the country and the opportunities there across. When we, thank you Chandran sir and the team of Startup20 to bringing the entire ecosystem here into the Northeast and on the ground see what are the possibilities and opportunities on either ends. We know that this, because of the terrain and because of the lots of the past activities, have not been a very exposed area to various things, and entrepreneurship is also one of them, and opportunities that has not been sourced out or scouted out here in Northeast. How do we go about creating a regular engagement model where communities on either side, where these are deprived areas or where areas Like sir, you were mentioning about logistics, and it's a big challenge across when we are talking about a place like Northeast. And that is where entrepreneurs on the other side of the world have challenges to see this as a market also. And that is where again the vision doesn't go beyond. Similarly, when sir was talking about rural business incubation, skill is a very important thing when we are talking about entrepreneurship, because just exposing ideas and creating case studies won't work. We will also have to see that the acumen gets generated in the mass. The students being here will also look into this. Finally, mentioning Chintan sir, how do you see this as somewhere HubSpot being Northeast, and the major domains that Northeast could be, like I wanted to know, how do you see the entire ecosystem of Northeast having a larger access to the rest of the India? I think I posed in separate fragments 3 questions to the panelists. The logistics side, if we can start.
Yeah.
See, in terms of logistics, in 2015, when we were just looking at how we can expand our deliverables, be it B2B or B2B, in terms of supply chain e-commerce, we had a major problem to get shipments delivered in Northeast. It used to take anything between minimum 12 to 15 days to get shipments delivered in this region. But now, in the last 3 years post-COVID, what we have seen is a tremendous speed what we have been able to achieve in terms of getting the shipments delivered. And what has happened is companies like Amazon, or companies like Flipkart, or companies like Zomato, Swiggy, who have created a different set of recruitment process here, wherein there is an employment now, which a typical employment can be towards the delivery boys, or towards people managing the station, or people managing the distribution centers. These all have gradually started evolving, and today we see that the rough figure what I had from my sources is that around about 13% of the entire e-commerce is happening from the Northeast, which is itself a huge number. And if this number starts growing with the way we look at, so today $49 billion is the roughly e-commerce business across India, and a report has been published that by 2025 it can reach to $170 billion. If that's the number, let's look at what can Northeast achieve from that entire pie of business. So when we see all these things, when we see the way infrastructure is getting developed in terms of road, in terms of the transportation, or in terms of even the rail network, we see that the connectivity, which was 12 to 15 days, which has come down to 7 to 8 days. I am very much confident that in the next another year, will be 3 to 4 days deliveries happening across the Northeast, and that will be a very winning situation to be seen by all of us. Thank you.
Maybe I missed this point, like establishing the skill set in the community. Definitely this is a challenge, and when I said rice, when we come up with a kind of caption saying that every youth has to be served with rice. It means like rural incubation center for entrepreneurship. It has to serve every youth. And how we do it is, we ask the youth to come and stay with us. So the skill establishment is not like, I give a case study on YouTube, or I say, yeah, this is how we are successful at you, be another one. No, we say come and join with us. Don't invest your 50,000 with you, keep it in your bank account, don't invest it now. Let's initially see and work out whether this model is suitable for you or not. Example, if it is a dairy farm, then maybe at 4 o'clock in the morning you have to wake up and do all the cleaning. I will do that. If not, then choose another option for you. Not like invest now and after that you regret. So a work will continue for at least 1 month, 2 months based on his interest to sustain with us. Once he feels confident, then only he will depart from us, and while departing he will get all the resources from us. Example, if it is poultry, you pay 10,000 for us, I'll give you chicks, I'll give you meat, I'll give you cages. And 10,000 is a decent amount, anybody can start. All the women in the community can start. And I'm a bit surprised when I saw some part of this road, when I was coming. X from Andhra Pradesh were reaching here. I said, how come Andhra Pradesh is sending from such a long distance X here? That means huge cartons. All the women in this particular place or maybe in close quarters can actually do this. There is hardly investment in 10,000. So for me it's a surprise. For you it might be a way of life. So I want that to be broken. In your brains you have to break it. Maybe I'll talk something about psychology here. Because the model they were talking about, what is the model? Price is one model I talked about. The second model I talked about is already the digitalization is already in place and your mobiles have got all the WhatsApp group. Be specifically interested or focused on what you want. Sometimes you can't search for what the next hero, heroine is doing, what the next fight is happening in the political agenda. Maybe you should be critically purposeful in your thought process. What best I'm going to achieve today, what else tomorrow, or maybe next 1 month onwards. So the interest factor and the commitment factor in your brain, it has to change. Once it changes, you will start developing the ecosystem in your own mobile. And currently I'm talking about 200 plus PhD scholars in tourism. They were doing PhD. But we said entrepreneurship is not like, a different subject. All these PhD scholars, they were working 3 years in particular project, making 300-page document. So we started asking those people, why you are spending 3 years of time only for getting a doctorate? What kind of change you are bringing to the field? So all these PhD scholars were forced to work on those destinations so that they can bring up some transformation. Example, my friend has asked about this, Odisha, and Odisha, only turtles are being conserved. Now this particular person is conserving the redly turtles, and then he doesn't have a tourism canal fund into his kitty. And I'm a person who wants to go and stay with him and learn those things from him. At the same time, he's conserving the nature also. Now we have to think beyond an innovation parameter, and startup could be anything. Now these kind of products can be evolved over a period of time. So I still say you have to create your ecosystem, and for that you should be interested in your next neighbor. I don't know how many people are really keen to know who is your next neighbor, what is his strengths, how can actually contribute for your vision of a startup. If you are able to develop that inclination, then you will develop the ecosystem in your own mobile. So WhatsApp mobile is a magic, believe me. And skill set, if you want to learn, be with the person, be with the mentor, and learn over a period of time. Then once you're successful, you can just move on.
I would like to give it a slightly bigger perspective, because these task forces, which we have cross-connected task forces for B20 as well as Startup20. And skilling and reskilling, as I've mentioned in both the occasions, are very, very key areas. So this needs to be done the point was very well taken and in individual specific subjective cases, yes, but if we have to take it to a bigger ecosystem, a wider canvas, then you have to, and frankly one of the probable deliverables from the Startup20 and maybe of the B20, which is still being worked out, can be setting up of global innovation centers within the country, in which you can give a huge perspective to skills. Because the skill sets are going to change over time. There a lot of the existing ones are becoming obsolete, so you have to look at the newer ones. There was a mention of the gig economy, how supply chains, and there are a lot of talks about they are being trained, they are moving, their qualifications being improved, including those even for the Ola and Uber drivers and all. So skilling, I think there's a lot of interconnection and even in other areas also. So we have to work together to see how the large businesses and startups come together to develop a very clear skill map for the country. Of course, for the entire world in general, this is G20, but with specific co-location in India and how with this entire young population, how we can move them up into the next stage of their qualification and employment.
So just to echo what Rupaji just said, surveys across India and maybe South Asia indicate that 40% of the workforce would need reskilling in the foreseeable future. And that's, just a mere statistic. Now, if the complexities are the spectrum of skilling is so wide, and the longevity, shelf life of skilling is also got a finite component. The scaling up of skilling from the rural to the market level is another challenge. So to address some of these, I think the government has done some good work. And since I worked for the government for close to 4 decades, I think 900 DPIIT recognized startups in the Northeast, creating 8,800 jobs, and a very interesting scheme, the North East Entrepreneurship Fellowship, which is to give a fillip to the startup ecosystem, connects networks and trains entrepreneurs in the Northeast, as also a thing called very appropriately acronymed as ASCEND, so accelerating startup caliber and entrepreneurship drive. Again, the other entities which build on that, and I think that the government deserves praise for it, is the Northeast Venture Fund, as also the Northeast Development Financial Initiatives that are being undertaken under the umbrella of these large umbrella schemes. Thank you very much.
Okay, so just you asked me for a perspective on Northeast vis-a-vis the rest. I'm going to share 2 thoughts. See, first is a bit of a cautionary thought. And something that we all have to come together on and vow to do together. This is that, see, there are 2, think of these following 2 words. First word is engage, second word is exploit. If you don't like engage, you can say explore versus exploit, whatever. See, engage, exploit. I think we should be extremely careful and engage the Northeast, and not really look at it from that, oh, here's an opportunity that to exploit in a way, because all said and done, this is the only region in the world, certainly in our country, where natural resources are still preserved. So this conversation, of course, goes to Gandhiji's enough for everybody's need, not greed, etc. So I think, and we don't need a lot. I mean, look at what we've done to the whole climate change issue and all that, right? So I think the models that originate from, see, models don't need to be plopped onto Northeast. Models must originate from the Northeast, because this is the only region that has the conditions that other regions don't have. How can a model that originated under some other conditions be plopped onto this? Now, I am not, now, when I say that, before again I'll get discarded as, oh, this is very romantic, let me say that the basics don't change. Obviously, you want a fit between the problem, you want to identify the right problem, you want to fit between a solution and a problem. You want to have a fit between the solution and the market. All of that is fine. Those basics don't change. Basics of principles of entrepreneurship I am not questioning. What I'm questioning is that the models of entrepreneurship that work elsewhere, must those models be here? I don't think so. There are some models here that will work here that other parts of the world have to learn from. Models that are respectful of nature and still profitable, not profit maximizing necessarily, but profitable, right? So I think that's one thought that I'd like to share, and also say that we all have to be on board with this idea. It's really easy to exploit nature. That's not what one is trying to do. And so from that perspective, and I think Rupaji mentioned the Business 20, Startup 20. So for instance, take organic agriculture. Chemical agriculture some years ago saved us, right? When the Green Revolution came, there was fear of global food scarcity. Now there's again fear of that. But anyway, at that time, corporations could produce fertilizers, pesticides at an affordable rate. They could produce it in volume, it could go to places, all of that. Today we can't really go with that model. We have to curtail the overuse of chemicals. Now this state has done it. They don't seem to have starved yet. There is a whole question of, if we do that whole en masse, we will all starve and all. I'm not poo-pooing that question, it's a serious question. But there are also startups that have come about all over in India, which are organic or natural farming based startups. Or natural organic farming based value addition. Today when we go to MG Mart, you will see some of those startups. Some of them are from SMU TDI and all of that. These startups we should vow to amplify. Unless we amplify these startups, we cannot replace the old practices. And it's not for anybody, it's not about anybody's business, it's about our own survival. So I think in Business 20 conversation, I gave several examples of startups also that do this. But I think through these cross-cutting task forces, we really have to articulate how will we identify these startups that will make us more sustainable from regions like this, and corporates who are willing to scale them. And for that a corporate may have to say that instead of 20% annual year-over-year profit, I will accept 17%. It's okay. That's my thought.
Thank you, panel members. I have a question for Rupa ma'am and Abigail, and again, the question is also open to the other panel members. It's from, again, two perspectives. One is the government perspective, the other is the startup perspective. What do you think are the best practices or schemes or gaps that we should implement it at every level of the government or every level of the operations to make sure that women are empowered in terms of services, in terms of products, in terms of the inclusivity as a whole?
Slightly tough question to answer in the sense that it's such a big subject. So inclusiveness, empowerment, these are very, they are being handled. In fact, we have a full Women 20, I think it's an engagement group in which all this is being discussed. But if you personally ask me, and since I've worked in the Women and Child Development Ministry earlier, inclusion and empowerment, basically improving the financial and digital literacy aspects of women. See how, there's a lot of push to cooperative movements these days to see how they can form the present SHGs become a bigger part of the cooperative movement. And I personally believe that they should learn a lot more this marketing and branding skills. The products of the women SHGs, and there are a lot of initiatives being taken, like DPID has the open network for digital commerce. There are a lot of e-commerce policies in the make, and also for one very important area for women would be their economic empowerment. Yeah, inclusion would require, of course, employment, scaling, better working hours, better, conditions, more of security, and so many other issues. But if it is one thing which, at least working in social sector for a long time, what I feel is that the women need to be economically empowered. And this empowerment, because our organized sector employment is a very small percentage overall, the employment. So unorganized sector, the women have to come up. It is happening. There are a lot of very vibrant self-help group movements. I think Northeast itself has a very good cooperative movement. We saw some of these products and stalls yesterday also. But they let them become a bit more professional, a bit more skill-oriented, and ensure that their products reach the not only the pan-India stage but also the border stage, for which that is where the startups, the businesses, the digitization, the open networks, and e-commerce would come. They have to be in sync with each other for the women to move ahead in their respective journeys of life.
Thank you, Abigail.
So, from my own experience as a startup founder and from Sikkim, I would like to highlight the importance of women officers and bureaucrats, because I think that is oversighted and is not mentioned. But I think that's one of the key factors when it comes for us as women entrepreneurs to move forward, because in my personal journey as a startup founder, competent women officers have been an imperative instrument when it comes to making the startup ecosystem conducive for women entrepreneurs. And our society has been practicing, like most of other northeastern states, they have been practicing gender equity, which gives opportunity for women entrepreneurs more access to more information, awareness, and also resources. So I think overall, this women-centric approach and women representation in government levels as well as in startup actually helps us to overcome challenges that we face as women entrepreneurs. And we have about almost 50% of the government workforce is women, and let's say about 58% of women are represented in Sikkim's Zilla and Gram Panchayat. So that shows us a lot of spirit that women can move forward and is willing to move forward and make changes for the state when it comes to women representation and women entrepreneurship.
Thank you. More power to women.
I just add one.
Sure.
Basically, I'm trying to bring a perspective from my place, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, right? One model which has been very successful is creating an industrial estate for women. And this is a very successful model because unless you become the mainstream in the industry sector, not just like a peripheral small entrepreneurial model of a small cooperative. So unless that is being made, the power of women can't be realized to the fullest extent. The dedicated women, industrial estates for women is a model which started somewhere in 1980s by one of the lady in our state. And gradually it has created now 3 different industrial estates, hosting more than 500 plus industries in that. Now people are forced to get the land, so even men has to follow women, because only women who is in the front run for that industry will get the access to that land. So in that way you can mainstream the women into industry. So this is one model people have to seriously study, and the model you can search it online. Ali is one model that you can search for.
Oh, I should mention Alip is also an Atal incubation center. Yeah.
We never miss a chance to.
Taking the cue from Dr. Chintan, I think his parent organization does a huge body of work. While the term women empowerment might sound cliche and clearly, so there are these entities called Ichha Shakti scheme, which actually sort of creates that spark from the idea, generating the idea and taking it to the next level of its implementability or implementation. The other is Gyan Shakti, which is really about creating the know-how, the knowledge, and the widening the horizons of one's comprehension. And the third is Karan Shakti, which is clearly how we skill the workforce and how we enable them to scale up to market dynamics. In addition to that, I think there are other schemes which are under various entities. Sri Shakti Yojana, the Mahila Udyan Nidhi Yojana. So this is just to articulate that we have these entities, but then we come to the last mile penetration. And that's where the challenge lies. I mean, the penetration into the hinterland and access to such, I would say, promising schemes and initiatives and strategies needs to be leveraged and enhanced in the Northeast. Inclusivity in the Northeast, having spent a decade in various, from a young doctor in the insurgency at times of the 80s onwards to now, once seeing a little bit, and I think the diversity is the strength. But it also, the rest, mainland India has to understand that one size fitting Northeast in one shot is not going to work. We have to customize it to the milieu that we are focusing on. And therein lies the key, I think, if I haven't said too much.
We'll take a question from the audience. Mike, please.
I'm Secretary of Agriculture, and thank you for all the thoughts that you have shared so far. I see that you are very, very distinguished young speakers, and I gained a lot from your insights also, including our very own startup that you have. As my experience in the agriculture sector, and I was also very focused on agriculture and sort of business potential that it has in the enforcement that it has to be. There are certain paths on which I am not so aware about, especially the experience of setting up the incubation center for startup and agriculture, and also the rice model that we talked about. Whether these engagements can come into our local area of governance, where we can include this as part of our party government policy also. Because I am facing difficulties on two parts. One is, we already are a certified state. We have substantial productivity at the field level. It is just that at the level of aggregation to the FPOs, the FPO also can be branded as a startup because we have very interesting ideas coming from the FPOs. It's just that the aggregation point is where we are struggling to meet demands. And as far as the last mile connectivity to export markets are concerned, we have a lot of support from the government of India. And recently, Sir Piyush Goyal sir had come visiting us too. And he gave the number of $1 billion target that we are looking at. So it's a trickle now. With that billion will come a flood. So it's a very welcome thing for us to target. But achieving that target with that startup ecosystem that we are still looking at its very nascent stage. So how do we leapfrog that divide? Is one thing that we have to look at very carefully, because we have very skilled youth force, very literate youth force. We have a farming community which is equally literate, and they are also very aggressive in their stand of getting better markets for their products. Because right now we have a mix of organic and inorganic, and they are not getting the right price. Why they are not getting is we are struggling in the aggregation part and reaching the export market through the right channels. So So this is one thing we are looking at carefully. The government is totally focused on it because as certification and achieving organic status, we have achieved very successful. Now the second phase of going and leveraging that benefit for the farmers, for the communities, is something that we have to look at very seriously and immediately. Like I can talk to you about one experience I had. For one local unit which is located in South City, now it has become a model for us, where this farming community was into sheep raising. So they used to pluck out the wool and for their own indigenous, their cultural practices of making rugs and garments from those wool. So it was a cultural practice for a community, groom community. So what we did was, we saw the enthusiasm there. They are not so literate, they are not skilled, they are farmers. It's just that the loom that they had used, it was a very traditional practice which had been gone on for generations. But we saw the market opportunity there, so we hooked up with MSME and we got a bit of funding from there. So we scaled up the production of this sheep and the Angura rabbits, and we embedded NIFT alumni to do the design. And they on their own, they linked up with the US market and all exports started happening from there. In fact, we even we applied for a design contest which was happening in US. And I'm very happy to share that in December, we got a global gold medal for design and quality. So, of course, you will be visiting Munjima. The startup is Chupa Co. The Chupa is the name, and Co means from Chupa. So, which is one of the stalls there. I invite you to visit there. So, that's the sort of, gems of startups that we have here. Like when VC sort of talking about that we have potential there. It's just that we need to channelize this, and we cannot waste time. We cannot lose time, and I don't know, I think your startup is happening at the right time in this case. It's just that we need to maintain the momentum and get the right feedback and get the right handle so that we can leverage this. That's what I feel. It was not a question actually.
No, can I engage with a couple of thoughts? It's okay. Huh? I think, well, this is very exciting. I will be very happy to talk more about it offline also. But and there was some mention. There are 4 or 5 thoughts that come to mind, and all of these are actually timing-wise happening at this time, demonstrated, etc., that one can engage with. But the first thought that I want to sort of share is that I realize that we're having, this is a Startup 20 conversation, but the challenge that you are mentioning, one doesn't have to confine oneself to startups, but one can think of startups plus MSME as I'm also hearing you say that. There are some very interesting things that we have observed from our Innovation Mission. For example, there is an incubator, Access Livelihood Consulting, that is in Hyderabad, and this is a they also won the DPIIT's Best Incubator Award 2 years ago. This is one group that has it is as if it is incubating small Amuls of different weavers and dairy farmers and whatever else have you, and are kind of infusing self-help groups type structures with technology and some form of value addition by creating a production house that goes to the next step of the value chain for whatever it is that they are doing, but locally, and then linking them to markets type of a thing. I think that's quite an interesting model for a place here. Second, I think, you already mentioned the design challenge that in the United States. An office like ours, Atal Innovation Mission, is happy to work with the state to launch its own design challenges. We have a lot of experience of running these challenges, hand-holding startups, getting them to markets, etc. All of these templates are there. They're all yours, happy to share. And particularly in this area of last mile linkage or aggregation, how you improve the the nature of aggregation, all of that we can run as challenges. Happy to help design those. And then finally, in terms of the agriculture specific incubation and acceleration, you know this that this budget, union budget, announced the agri accelerators, and our Innovation Mission is working with the Ministry of Agriculture to design that scheme. Now one can imagine a centralized accelerator, but one can also imagine a decentralized accelerator, because we are greenfield, there's nothing to lose in a thought experiment and developing one. Maybe one can imagine one centralized and one decentralized. And I think there we can do some interesting thinking and implementation. So we were very happy to talk further about it. I mean, I'm not speaking for Ministry of Agriculture, but I'm just saying I think they're excited about it, we are too, and I think these are real problems to solve.
The other challenge in the Northeast, if I can just chip in, I know we're talking after Dr. Chintan is like showing a candle to the sun, so I don't have any such misgivings.
You are the Vice Chancellor. I must keep that in mind.
So clearly, literacy in the Northeast being high works against agripreneurship because they think it's a retrograde step. You see, the educated people are looking for white-collar jobs and the high-end ones in the industry. But those are few and far apart. But for them to focus on agriculture where there is significant strengths across the landmass of the Northeast, I think we need to have, I think the accelerator fund, as Dr. Chintan just articulated, if it could have a Northeast dimension to it, it would add huge value, because the kind of crops we have, we have scalability concerns, a digitization model, a public-private partnership, and creating cooperatives out of communities and societies, and as Dr. Chintan just elucidated, upscaling them to bring them to the markets, and that would be the game changer in the Northeast perhaps.
Thank you so much, sir. I think it was a very interesting panel talk for me. I just have one last question, and it's for all the panel members. What are the two favorite things about Sikkim that you loved while you visit here and about startup, except Startup20? What's the two best things in Sikkim that you loved? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
The flora and the fauna are very friendly. That I found this different. I don't know whether you know. This is our Startup20, of course, the first, second event after Hyderabad. But for B20, this is third event in Northeast. So we have had it Manipur, Mizoram, now Sikkim, and then we are going to Nagaland. That will be the graph analysis. So and all this is, we have got a lot of help from Ministry of External Affairs. So everywhere, people here, the kind of enthusiasm, the kind of positivity, especially from state governments, seeing children wave at you on the streets because of G20 delegation, it gives you such a good high. So, so the kind of friendliness, the positivity, and of course very skilled manpower, the very high levels of literacy, lot of women empowerment, a lot of women, I would say, in all levels of government and governance. So I think, I mean, it's been a very good experience so far.
Thank you. Abigail?
Since I'm the local here, so I think it's G20 and S20 for me. That's the best one.
Thank you.
For me, well, in addition to what has been said, for me, the soundscape is beautiful. I think like in the morning at the hotel, there's the Om Mani Padme Hum in a mountain landscape. That's pristine, I think. And then second is, so I have lived in mountains of Colorado for a few years, and there's no match to mountains.
I agree. Thank you.
People, human being, is part of nature. That's what most of the urban community tend to forget, and they detach themselves from the nature. And they say, okay, now the nature has to be preserved or something. But at one end, they forget that they are part of nature itself. So, being that biophilic nature, when you look at Sikkim, I see, yes, I am now feeling that essence there. So the nature is one which is the most pristine here, and we want to preserve that. So whenever it comes, even as a startup, sometimes they say, no, don't change this, preserve this one. So culturally, you need to preserve that, culture and nature. These two things are really great attraction for the world for sure, whichever place you are.
For me, it will be humbleness. I love the way people are humble here. I appreciate that a lot. And second is authentic moves. I enjoy a lot.
Not to mention, yes.
Also colors for me.
Colors, yeah. Yes, sir, please.
So there's a little conflict of interest, and that's because I work here for the Sikkim University. So quite frankly, it's a very unique state with its strengths, which one can go on, and it almost may sound like I'm talking about it. But this is the state where you see the perfect harmony between humankind, which comes in various shapes, sizes, and complexities in mainland India. They are in perfect symbiotic harmony with the nature in Sikkim. And that is the USP of Sikkim. I mean, we don't see us messing around too much with our natural resources and exploiting them to the extent that we cause environmental degradation. The other harmony that you see is a social fabric harmony. We come from, the society and the communities come from different ethnicity and subsets, but yet there is peace, there is a certain get-along ability factor, and they work together towards the growth. And finally, I would say a responsive and enabling governance over here, which, for instance, we've had two major bus accidents on our Central Referral Hospital, which is our tertiary care teaching hospital. 1 minute more? Yeah. So, tell me one state where you will have 3 ministers come within 90 minutes of the accident. Tell me one state where you will find ex gratia funds distributed within 18 hours of the accident. And, so much of facilitation, which is in the sectors of education and healthcare, which are primarily what we deal with. I mean, we provide in Sikkim 50 free MBBS seats to the students of Sikkim. Now, is there any developed state which does 50 free seats? Let's ask that question. And that pretty much answers what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I want to thank from bottom of my heart to all the panel members. We'll just wait for one click with all of you. Can we have the photo of the panel members? There's a startup showcase stalls on the MG Mark. Would request you all to kindly go there and interact with our startups. Also, we will again meet for lunch at 2 here itself in Chintan Bhavan. Looking forward to interactions with you all, and thank you again for coming and joining us for the Fireside Chat.